on the call. And, you know, I'm on Momentum Coach. That's great. And I think I'm on Abe Brown, author, speaker, coach too, I hope. So we'll see. Maybe check that out, Cynthia, if you don't mind. And then we've got, oh, no, that's good. Okay, it's good. Hi, Gabrielle. And we've got Mo. Mo's a dental student, Dr. Jen. So that's great.
Perfect.
And then we've got Lana. I'm not sure, Lana, if you're swearing at us. You know, maybe some missend on the keyboard. I mean, I probably deserve to be sworn at for you pick any number of my flaws, and that's worth swearing at for sure.
That or one of the kids is playing, because I have my son, when I get on Zoom calls, is always trying to message everybody at the same time.
That's great, Lana. It's okay. She spilled on the keyboard. Hey, it happens to us, and hopefully your keyboard's okay. Munfiq, Ryan Abu. I'm a mindset reset coach located in Halifax. Wonderful to have you, Munfiq. It's great. Munfiq is a real powerhouse. So, folks, just as you're joining, thank you so much. We're going to formally get going here in just a couple of moments, and we're going to allow us to get to know Dr. Jan. I'm just checking out, you know, the live video, making sure we're on a good place here. And, you know, of course, as you're hopping on, you know, if you follow me on Facebook, Abe Brown, author, speaker, coach, that's ABE, you know, feel free to share this live video, because I can promise you Dr. Jan is really going to add some value to every single one of us here today. And so please, you know, hop on and we'd just love to hear from you all as well. So thanks for that. So we got Crystal from YYC. We've got Janine from YYC. We've got Dawn from St. Paul, a life coach. Nice to have you, Dawn. So, you know, I can see many of you on the call already. So, you know, I think we can start. Dr. Jen, are you all ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get going. Yeah.
All right. So, you know, obviously, we've been doing this webinar series on, you know, the idea of business resilience now. And the reason we've been doing that is because we're in the middle of a crisis. And this crisis, in a lot of ways, you could say, has been caused by the image on the screen. And they tell us that that is a representation of COVID-19. That little thing has changed our world as we know it. And that's not all a bad thing, by the way. But that's the reality of our situation. And so many of you know, who have followed me, that we've been doing this for the last month or so. We've had some incredible guests. And so today we've got Dr. Jan, and I'm going to do a proper introduction of Dr. Jan in just a moment. But many of you also know that before we get into the serious stuff, I'm always about the humor. I hope you don't mind. I have been told that humor boosts your immune system. And there is a proverb that says something to the effect of laughter is good medicine. And so before we get into the serious stuff, I just like to pull a couple of memes out there. I hope you don't mind. And I'd love to get your feedback in the chat box, folks. And again, make sure you select all panelists and attendees. I said I had a case of Corona. Right.
Yeah, Corona's been hurt by this. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, right?
I know. And I haven't had a Corona since it started, but then again, I've hardly had any alcohol. So who knows what the long-term will be for them, you know. There's a couple of more. Me, I'm going to be so productive today. That's how we start. And then me, by the end, I'm into Google, and then you're what? Not getting anything done. And how many of you have tried a quarantine haircut? You know, I'm almost needing one. Dr. Jen, have you done that?
I got my wife to try to help me out on the sides a little bit. Actually, it turned out okay, but we haven't touched the top yet. But
it looks great, you know. That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of us are going to be needing a haircut. I've been thinking about sending an email to our Premier, Jason Kenney, and saying, "Dear Premier Kenney, please let me get a haircut. Let the barbers go back to work," you know. But it's not yet at that extreme stage, I guess. Couple more. I shared one of these last week, 911, what's your emergency? Hello, there's 11 people hanging out together and one of them has the sniffles, you know. We've all become, haven't we, a little bit extra sensitive when it comes to this, right? What do you think, Dr. Chen?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we're worried about anything that's happening around us these days.
Yeah. And then I saw this other meme, you know, for extroverts, everything I want to do is illegal. Right? If you're an introvert, you won't get that. You'll be like, what are you talking about, right? You want to rob banks? No, no.
Yeah.
Extroverts, they just want to get out and meet people. But apparently right now, it's against the law, or
Yeah, I know. I
somewhat.
saw one that was similar to that. It said, like, I like to go to restaurants, I like to go to bars and visit a lot of non-essential services. So everything that I normally do is now shut down, right? So
Right. Yeah, and I mean, who makes these determinations? Non-essential, right? And I'm sure that there's some thought that goes into it. This one here, I was reluctant to put it on, but I just thought it's kind of funny. Both of them actually. Me taking my wife to get pampered the first day after quarantine. All right. I mean, it's not that funny, but it's kind of funny, you have to admit. And then I like that one. So now you're quarantined all by yourself. Have you realized you're not a social drinker, but a regular alcoholic, right?
what's going to be busier at the end of quarantine? Is it Weight Watchers or Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I mean, we're sitting at home and eating a little too much and drinking a little too much. So
Yeah, and you see all these pictures of people saying, well, hey, this is what I do when I'm alone, right? And it's every day, right? And you're like, wow, that's pretty good. And then I've only got one more slide, but I showed these ones before. I thought I'd show them again just because, 2019, stay away from negative people. My favorite, 2020, stay away from positive people, COVID 2019 positive people. And then the old washing my hands. And how many have been washing your hands more than ever? Some of you probably have been, for
yeah,
sure. So, but on a serious note, COVID-19 has had some really big impacts. I mean, it's kind of scary in a lot of ways how much the world has changed since the start of 2020. It doesn't have to be scary, but for many it is. And without a doubt, we're in a situation that many of us can't control. And all of these changes mean that we have to change the way we manage our lives, our career, and our businesses. And so what we've been trying to do, literally now for the last 5 weeks, I think this is our 5th episode, is try to think about solutions. And I don't have the solution. I'm not anyone's version of a genius, that's for sure. But what we have been doing is bringing people together to have conversations, because I really believe that the solution is always in conversation. It's not in a group of elites in an ivory tower somewhere making decisions for us. It's not in you being told what to do. It's in you hearing different perspectives and learning from other people, and then figuring out what your pathway forward is going to be. And so, in that note, we've had some great guests so far, and today is absolutely no different. Today we've got Dr. Jan Jaffer. He's the CEO of what is known as TREC Dental. And in a few moments, Dr. Jan can tell us about that and what that is. But you can see his bio on the screen. I got to know Dr. Jan, actually it was about a year ago now, in January of 2019. Their organization, they have an annual conference, and I was invited to be one of the speakers at their conference, and was really impressed with how values conscious this group of dentists and dental hygienists and dental assistants and administrators and all of the folks that go into literally 20 different dental clinics across Calgary, and I think maybe even a couple outside of the city, what that looks like. And Dr. Jan's the leader of that. And as we think about business resilience, there's different types of businesses out there. There's online, and that could be everything from Amazon to, that online seller, all the way to, folks who are maybe coaches or online speakers and that kind of a thing. And then you have offline businesses, and these are real world brick and mortar businesses like dental offices, like Dr. Jen has. And so who better to talk about business resilience, how we're going to get through it in a time like this. And one of the things that also impressed me, and this is the second page of Dr. Jan's bio on your screen, is that they have a real passion, and particularly Dr. Jan does, for doing charitable works through dental care. There's a lack of dental services to some degree in Canada, but I'm going to suggest that we have an abundance here in comparison to some other countries around the world. And that doesn't mean we're perfect. We still have a ways to go, but in comparison to truly poverty-torn countries, we're miles ahead. And Dr. Jan and some members of his team are quite passionate about that and make a difference. And so, Dr. Jan, it's so great to have you here today. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm definitely excited to be here.
Thank you. So tell us about you. I mean, we can read the words on the screen, but just share your story. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what makes you tick.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a dentist, obviously, graduated back in 2002 and joined my father in 2002. We had a clinic in Ranchlands, which is still one of the clinics that we have. My father opened that up in 1981. So we've had, our first dental clinic for coming up to 38, 39 years now. Joined, about 17, almost 18 years ago. And, it's been some great growth since then. What we've, managed to do or managed to figure out is that when you're working with the right people, when you're creating those kind of team environments, you have you just automatically, it's just a natural tendency to kind of grow. And so we've grown from, one practice when I started up to, we just brought on a group recently. I think I saw a couple of them actually join here, but Choo Choo Pediatrics. And so we're now up to, 20 clinics inside Calgary and in Cochrane. And it's finding the right people to make this happen with. And that's been the big thing that's worked for us is, value-based, socially conscious dentistry. That's what we call ourselves. And if you line yourself up with the right people, everything just naturally has a tendency to grow. We joke that, you take care of a kid, you take care of a plant, you do all the right things, they naturally grow. Until we get to our age, and then unfortunately we grow sideways, not up. But we still tend to grow regardless. And so it's been great. I mean, been given lots of opportunity to help as well, and that's a big part of the organization that we have is that we do work overseas, but we partnered with CUPS a little over a year ago, and we do dentistry in Calgary every Thursday for free. We send a team down to CUPS. Dentist, assistant, hygienist, receptionist, and we do some free work down there to try to make sure we're helping locally, but also helping internationally.
That's just awesome. So tell us about, values conscious dentistry. Tell us about that.
So we have 4 values. I mean, when you see TREC, people ask, well, what's TREC? And TREC are our 4 values. So teamwork, respect, exceptional dentistry, and continuous improvement. So those are our 4 values that we have. And so, when we have conversations, a lot of people ask, well, when you have a problem, how do you deal with it? When you're dealing with somebody when you're having an issue with maybe a staff member or something that's going on, we always fall back and we say, how's it working within our values? When we talk about, adding somebody to the team, or in the situation where somebody doesn't fit on the team, which values are they empowering us to follow, or which values are they violating? And so if they violate a value, it's that to us is a reason that they don't necessarily work on the team. And so it's then a much simpler conversation with our team members is like, hey, how's the teamwork going? How's the respect going? And if we have all those aspects, you fit perfectly. And if you don't, people find their way either in or out of the organization based on the values.
So just repeat those values for us in case somebody maybe didn't get them. And what's maybe a little bit about the meaning behind each one?
Yeah. So teamwork being our first value, and then respect, exceptional dentistry, and continuous improvement.
Okay.
But we always say they go in order of importance. So teamwork is by far our most important value. And, I know you talk about this, we talk about this a lot. How do you create an environment that fosters team?
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, talks about the circle of safety.
Okay.
And how we need to create that safe environment for our team. And if we can create a safe environment for the team, they've got our back and we've got their back, and we're going to make it through this together.
Awesome.
And I think that's more important now than it's possibly ever been, because we're in a difficult situation. 4 weeks ago, we closed all of our offices and laid off 150 staff members.
Right.
I mean, we've temporarily laid off virtually the entire organization because we can't go to work. We've mandated to close. And it's a tough time. It's a tough time for us because, team is our most important value. And so how are you working with team when you are actually letting everybody go at the same time?
Yeah.
But it's been great. One of the things that I've started to do, is do these little videos. And at the beginning when this was all starting, I'd send a video out to the team every single evening, just letting them know what's going on, how we're dealing with things, that we don't know what's happening, but we're doing our best with it. And the amount of feedback I got from that was amazing, because the teams, knew that we're working for them, that we're trying to figure this out together, because nobody is winning in this situation. Unfortunately, it's the the one time out there where it's almost a lose-lose for everybody. But there's still ways that we can do better. And so, that's been a big part of our teamwork.
That's awesome. And so talk about how those values are guiding you and the team through this time where we really are dealing with the greatest health crisis in our generation, but honestly, it's very quickly becoming the greatest economic and business crisis of our generation. So what role is values playing in giving you a bit of a guidance system?
Yeah. So it was interesting when we decided that we had to, temporarily lay off our staff. We said, well, how are we going to help them in at least the short term? And so we did some top ups to help the staff members out. It's something that's challenging in any business. I mean, you look at the numbers that you have, and to do that, there's obviously a significant cost. But we know that we need to take care of the staff, and we know we need them to make it through this, because we need them back. I mean, our business does not work unless we have the people around us, helping us. I saw a little meme yesterday, and it's, the dentist saying, hey, I can do all this stuff by myself. The assistant saying, well, if you can do all that stuff by yourself, you don't need me. And then they're like, no, I can't do anything without you. And so we need our teams to make sure that we're successful. I mean, we cannot be successful without our teams. And so for us, doing some of that at the beginning, really keeping in touch. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things that we've been able to do. I'm very fortunate that I have a number of partners in my business, and they all run their own clinics. And so one of the things that I've definitely asked all my partners to do is, make sure you're in touch with your teams on a weekly basis. Like every week, you need to be in touch with your teams. And I'm in touch with the entire team on a weekly basis. I'll put a video in at a minimum once a week, if not, 2, 3 at the beginning. It was every day of the week. But it's hard for me to individually touch 150 to 200 people, depends on how you cut that. But in the entire organization, there's actually 200 people when you include all of our dentists. For me to individually touch all of those, that's a bit of a challenge. So I rely on the people around me to help make individual contacts to all of those people, because, that's what we need right now. We need to just keep in touch, and we need to keep, I hate this concept of social distancing. I've put a couple of posts about it. I'm like, we're physically distancing, but we need to be socially more connected than we've ever been. Because if we socially disconnect, then we're in big trouble, right? That's where the mental challenges that we're already seeing, start to manifest themselves.
I just love that. And I appreciate you sharing that, because, I kind of remember when I first heard that term, and, I think, like all of us, I pay my homage to the gods of public health and have a reasonable amount of trust in their judgment. But as soon as I heard that term, I think the moment, this was like early March, I think I shot a video, and I said, clearly it wasn't created by somebody who understands mental health, right? Because when you think about mental health and social distancing, those things are the exact opposite. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. So if I'm an employer, or I've got a team, or even if I'm a multi-level marketer and I've got folks, around the country, like what are some ways that somebody could keep in touch, right? Because especially for you, like, you probably would have been used to going into the office, and, you got 200 folks, probably you couldn't see all of them, but you could see some of them. And yet before we started, you were saying that in some ways this has been good to deepen some of that connection. So what are some tips you can give people for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, here we're using Zoom right now, right? One of the things that we've started to do a lot more is have Zoom meetings, and it's been fantastic, because we get to see people's faces and have those conversations, FaceTime, Duo, this new one, House Party, or House, I think it's House Party. I'm not sure what it is. There's lots of these new things popping up, and we need to see people's faces, because when you send a text, and that's really important too. Texting people and using WhatsApp and all these chats, but it's nice to see people's faces. It's nice to get that emotion behind the conversation. And I think that that's one thing that's been really interesting. I just this weekend, I had one of our cousins reach out and start a WhatsApp chat and said, hey, let's do a Zoom meeting between cousins. And here's the crazy thing. I mean, she's not that far away from me up in Edmonton. She's got a kid that's just a little under around the 1 year. I've actually never seen my cousin's kid. The first time I met him was on a Zoom call. Now, if we hadn't turned into this situation, I don't know that she would have reached out, and she got a bunch of the cousins on the call. We had all our little kids, get to meet each other for the first time through Zoom. But if she hadn't reached out and done that, I don't know when that would have happened. And that's a huge benefit, I think, of what's happening right now, is that people that we haven't talked to in a while, we've got a little extra time on our hands. And so people are really starting to reach out a little bit more than they have in the past. And I think it's one of the big benefits coming out of us sitting at home and sometimes twiddling our thumbs and thinking, what could I do? Well, here we go. You've got some opportunities to do that. So I think making videos, and I think, getting online to do this stuff. I mean, one of the other things I found very interesting with Zoom calls, I'm also part of the World Partnership Walk. And so I'm the chair for the World Partnership Walk. And, last couple of years, we raised pretty much $1 million in Calgary for international development per year. This year, we've canceled the walk. No walk happening. We can't do an event in June that brings 5,000 people together. That's just irresponsible at this point in time. And one of the interesting things is, meeting with the senior leadership, we do conference calls once a month. And I said, you know what, forget the conference call. Let's get on Zoom. We've, in 3 years, never done a Zoom meeting. I don't get to see these people. But all of a sudden, just last week, we did a Zoom meeting with all these people. And guess what? People pay attention when you can see them. When I'm on a conference call, I'm on mute and I'm doing about 15 other things simultaneously.
Yes.
But you put me on a Zoom call and you can see me.
Yeah.
I'm not playing on my phone. I'm not answering emails to the same. I'm actually paying attention. So I think one of the other benefits of seeing people is that we actually pay attention when we can see them.
I just love that. And it's interesting too, because I found that people are doing more personalized expressions of connection as well. We've had, my wife and I, we've had several folks, drop off little gifts at our door. And we've had other folks send text messages that wouldn't, or, I've taken people shopping and I wouldn't do that before, right? Phoning some elderly people and just checking in on them and asking them if they need anything. And so I think, in spite of the physical distancing, this is an incredible opportunity, and we can take advantage of it, or we can sit there all day and watch Netflix, right? So have you noticed that this has been a good time for you as a business leader to look at your business a little bit as well and think, when things go back to normal, whatever that's going to be, how have you done? Are there areas or opportunities for improvement, for change, for advancement, for evolution? Like how has that lens been for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's the one thing that, I've sat back and said, okay, we have time, how are we going to use it? And so for me, probably maybe shouldn't be saying this, but for me to work, I need to get out of the house. And so I come to the office, and it's me working at the office, but, and it is probably annoying my wife a little bit, but I'm working, I'm at 8 a.m. I'm in the office every single day trying to figure out all the things that we can continue to do better, and still working with our management team, although they're remote, because usually we all work together in the same office. To me, there's a huge opportunity for us, and I think that we need to look at that. We need to look at how we get better, because there's always been about 50 things on my plan that I want to do, and things that I've never had enough time to do. And we're slowly starting to work through some of those things to make our organizations better. So really looking, working on the business, working as opposed to in the business. I mean, I think a lot of people they're so busy, they're stuck in the business. And I'm fortunate that I get to do a little bit of both all the time, because I'm a dentist, so I actually see patients, but then I don't see nearly as many patients as I used to, and I work on the business. But now we're forced, right? I mean, we can't see patients anymore. We can't really go into work. So we have an opportunity to work on our business. And we need to look at what the opportunities are on the far end. When we look, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks out, what's it going to look like? How are we going to be better coming out of this? How are we going to make sure that our teams are part of this, and our teams are, fully engaged and ready to go? And how are we going to get better? And so absolutely, we are still working, every single day in terms of, making sure that we continue to be better, and then also continue to look at the social responsibility side, because the biggest challenge I think that we're seeing now is that people, it's tough, right? You're not working, you're not making money. How are you going to help other people? You need to be creative on how you're going to help other people. And like you just said, I mean, one of the things that you're doing, going shopping for people, right? I mean, my parents have actually been doing that with a number of their older friends. They're out there, dad's going and buying groceries for people and dropping it off at their house. I mean, that's a simple thing that we can do to help people that doesn't really take a lot of, you know, I mean, we have the time right now, right? So we can reach out and do those things. And those are the nice little things that are making a difference. I mean, you're seeing a lot of stuff online, people dropping stuff off at people's doors. I mean, it's great. Nice to see that people are finding a way to still give back. But I think that there's going to be a bit of a void, and we're starting something soon. You'll actually see it probably not tomorrow, Monday. We're starting a kids COVID challenge here in Calgary, where we're trying
Okay.
to get kids involved to help and to create some cards
Okay.
for essential workers, and we're going to allow kids to decide where we donate the money to help people out. So we're asking them to do some drawings and some cards, and in turn, we'll give some money behind that to help some of the essential, some of the stuff in Calgary that needs to be done. Because I think we need to make sure we're helping, again, both locally and internationally. And so we've got some fun stuff coming out, because I know parents are probably pulling their hair out trying to figure out what to make their kids do. And so we're going to try to create some fun competitions for kids to do to give parents some ideas, but just trying to think outside the box of how we can help people during this challenge.
That's just awesome, Dr. Jan. That is great. I just love that. Lots of great ideas there for folks. So what about, the charitable work that you folks do? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a fascinating side to this, and what's driving that for you.
I mean, probably came from my father and upbringing. People always ask, well, how do you become charitable? And I said, I don't think you do. I think you grow up in an environment where it's not an option. It's part of who you are, right? So we grew up in an environment where volunteering wasn't something you thought about or you said, hey, how can I? It's something that was part of what you had to do. It wasn't really an option. It was just part of your upbringing. And so I think I think doing that, and I think looking at how we can do that better. And so it's always been something that we've done, and now we continue to figure it out. So as our organization, we've been lucky. The people that we bring in, we always talk about our social responsibility as part of who we are. And so when I interview people, I tell them all the time, I said, have you had a chance to go to our TREC Dental website? And if they say no, I'm like, well, that's a problem right off the bat, because you probably want to do a little bit of research as to who you're, which organization you're going to join. But I always ask them, what is it that brought you to us? Why is it that you think that our organization is important? And the two things that I always hear is that you do a lot of team building and you give back a lot. And I said, perfect. I said, those are the type of people that we're looking at, because, I expect you, when you apply for a job, to be able to, if you're a hygienist, take care of people and help them get healthier and clean their teeth. An assistant, I expect you to be able to do your job. We can always train you to do better, but I expect you to be able to do your job. What I need from you is all those intangibles that are difficult to train, but part of who I hope you are.
That's really, really important, isn't it? And one of the things that I think is so important, right, in tough times, is to continue to give back, right? Because I think no matter what kind of business you're in, I mean, unless you're selling toilet paper, you're probably financially, excuse me, challenged right now.
Yeah.
But you got to keep giving back, and why do you feel like that's important?
I mean, the world goes around. I mean, everybody needs help, right? And people joke about the 1%. If you're in Canada, you're in the 1% of the world. Like you already won the lottery by being here. And so we have an opportunity, but we have a responsibility. I don't think it's an opportunity. I think it truly is a responsibility of ours to help people.
Yeah.
If you have any sort of means, that's what it is. And so helping both locally and internationally, I think, are really important. And I think there's so many different ways of doing it. But I do think that, if we don't, how does society continue to get better if we're not out there pushing it? Because there's only so many people out there always doing that. I mean, the government's doing what they can, whether you agree with them or not, they're
Yep.
doing their part. But the individual needs to be a part of this conversation because we can move things faster than, any government can.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that the people have always asked me. They said, well, don't you have enough? And when I had one clinic and two clinics, and then it kind of grew to 5 and 10 and 15 and now 20 clinics, they said, when is enough? And I said, here's how I look at it. I said, financially, I was stable when I was a dentist, working out of one clinic. I could provide for my family at that point in time, but I only have two hands.
Yeah.
I can only do so much work.
Yeah.
But the organization now has 200 people. Now think of the possibility of what 200 people can do if they're all socially responsible.
Yes.
Our reach now is 200 times what my individual reach is. So my goal, I talk about my why. It's motivating people to live well and give back.
Yeah.
That's my whole goal doing this. And so the opportunity, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this, because to motivate people to do more is what I want to do, because we can touch a few more people. And if they can touch a few more people, I mean, again, it's that, that pay it forward kind of thing. But if I touch 2 people and they touch 2 more people, it's that exponential growth of being able to give back. And I think that that's where we have such an opportunity.
I just think that's so good, Dr. Jan. Thanks for that. So a question came up here from Amy, and I think you've partially answered it, but maybe just so that we get Amy's question heard, can you give some examples of the many things you're working on to improve the business? And I think there's been some others who've commented as well, which is great, that this has been a time where they've been able to work a bit on themselves, on their business. So, as much as you could sort of publicly share, have you looked at, what is it?
So a couple of things. I mean, some is just simply basic stuff where, there's manuals and stuff that we've always wanted to like update, and your HR manuals and stuff that, you give to staff and you do all these things and then you just forget about them, and they're 5 years old and they probably should be updated, just for some of those things. So some of them are kind of those mundane tasks, but the other are a lot around education. Right? I mean, what we know is there's a lot of good education out there, and just like this webinar and other things out there, there's a lot of people helping people get better. And so what we're doing is sifting through knowledge and trying to give it back to people. And so we're trying to show our organization, here's some great CE courses that are out there that we can do to get better. So we're curating CE to some extent, but we're also interacting with our teams to have conversations about, again, what they can do better when we come out of this. So, we're in the dental world, so we're talking to our hygienists and we're saying, you know what, there's papers, there's stuff that we can do, there's education about that. And so a lot of it right now is, honestly is based on education. And then a lot of it is, in some busy work in terms of, dealing with landlords and dealing with, government stuff. I mean, that's been the crazy part about this, is trying to figure out what the government's doing and figure out how we can help the staff with the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. I mean, that's a full-time job in itself, because they change it every single day.
No, and you have multiple stakeholders that you would deal with in your position, right? And it's a challenge. So I mean, you're an interesting person to me, and I say this with respect because most dentists are dentists, right? And thank God for that, because we all need to take care of our sort of oral health. But you're also a real entrepreneur, and I think that you have great advice for people. So take out your crystal ball for us a little bit, and where are you seeing all of this going? And if I'm a business person who's thinking, where do I need to go, or what are some trends I should be watching for? What kind of advice could you give us? Because clearly you're a thinker, and that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of this, I think there's going to be a ton of challenges, and I don't think we're going to go from, like the V that they say, they say you drop off and then you come back up. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be a slow growth out of this. It's been a tremendous decline. I mean, we fell off a cliff, but I think it's going to be that long road back, and it's going to be a bit of a long, windy road to get back to this. I think where we need to start looking is, as we're using this technology, and we've already talked about it, what's going to change with technology as we go forward? How is the online market going to change? Because, one of the things that I've always enjoyed is going to conferences. I love going to conferences. I love speaking at conferences. I mean, I think it's so great to meet people. How are we going to network when we can't see somebody.
Yeah.
That to me is going to be probably one of the biggest challenges, because we can still give courses. I could lecture online and people could come watch it. Great. But, you have all these people that are online right now listening to us. How do we connect them?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is probably our biggest challenge going forward, because that's the biggest benefit I find of going to conferences, is the ability to network with other people, to have you introduce me to, Cynthia and Glenn that are on here, because I don't know who these people are, but you do.
Yeah.
And me to introduce you to, like, Janine and Brad and Stephanie that are on here, because they're part of my team, right? But, how are we making those connections? I think it's probably going to be one of the biggest challenges. I think one of the biggest opportunities is going to be the people that can get out there and do some of the stuff virtually.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're looking at that right now, right? We've never done anything with teledentistry before. We've never had to. People have always come through the door.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I've always joked with in dentistry, is that we're so lucky because we get to touch people. And I'm like, not emotionally, we get to physically touch people. Every single day, our job revolves around physically touching people.
Right.
And one of the great things about that is we get that personal interaction that so many other businesses don't get.
Yes.
So many people now just text each other and email each other. But dentistry is one of those things that I feel we're so fortunate about, physically being in contact with people.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest challenge that we never saw coming. This is the one time that we can't touch people. I mean, that's dangerous. Touching people right now is dangerous for our health and for their health and for society's health. Never saw that coming. So what are we going to have to do to get through this on the other end? Well, the problem is we can't fix teeth without touching you. So there's a part of that that's going to go back to it.
Right.
But where is teledentistry going to be? Where are these online communications? And so we're actually setting up a platform right now. We'll be launching this next week, where we can start doing some online consults.
That's
because
awesome.
One of the biggest things we're having trouble with right now is patients are calling us, I broke a tooth.
Right.
We're not allowed to go in. Our dental association has been very strict on what we're allowed to go in, and it's got to be a real emergency for us to see a patient.
Yes.
Well, if we can't see the problem, it's very difficult for us to know what that problem is. Well, video solves that problem. And it's been interesting because the dental association had said, sure, go ahead, but only during the pandemic. And I think that's very short-sighted of them to say, well, you can do an online consult, but only during the pandemic. We won't allow you to do it afterwards. I think they'll change that, but we're going to have to look at online conversations a lot more, and we're going to have to figure out a way to network. And I don't have the solution to that, but figure out how to actually bring people into conversations is going to be one of the, if you can figure that part out, I think you're going to be in great shape, because that's going to be the difference, because we can all lecture, we can all teach people, but how do we connect people?
Yeah. I think that's so good, Dr. Jan. I mean, I in listening to you talk, and you think about, of course, like the dental regulators, dental association, of course, them saying, this is pandemic related, sort of authorization, which, makes sense because no one knows what the future holds. But, you do hear so many of these for the pandemic. And yet I keep thinking how many have to go on. And, I've been rolling around in my mind for the last few days, this saying, and that it's, the time to dig a well is long before you're thirsty. And I think a lot of people were caught off guard by this pandemic because it forced us to go online. And yet there were some of us who were ready, and that transition happened, and it was pretty easy. Others who weren't. And you know what? Hey, this is not a guilt or shame environment. What are some tips that we could give to those folks who now, because, let's be honest, right? Some of this is age related and not in a stigmatization way, but if I'm older, it's more complex to use these tools if I'm younger. So how would you help someone make that transition? And it's a great question to ask you, because like you said, you have to be able to touch people, but in the interim, what can you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, you're creating knowledge and I think you're giving it away for free. And I think that's probably the best thing that you can do to build, connections, right? I mean, the one other thing that we've been talking about amongst our team right now is that we're keeping in touch with our team, but how are we keeping in touch with our patients?
Right.
That's that much more challenging. Like, I mean,
Right.
you put the whole organization together, there's thousands of patients out there that are in our organization. And how do we get in touch with them? But yeah, how do you do that? And I think this is where the the individual business owner is much more challenged, right? I mean, the biggest benefit that we have right now is because we set up a network and we have a lot of people in the organization, I can rely on my partners to help me do different things. So I have one of my partners who loves technology, and I said, look, you go find the best ways to do teledentistry, go look them up, send them to me, and then we'll curate them afterwards. And so he got out there, and literally the next day, he was on a call with somebody doing teledentistry. They showed us how they were doing stuff, and then we kind of looked at that and we said, hey, that's good. And we were honest with the guy. He said, look, you guys have a team already. You can figure this out. You don't really need us, because it was helping the individual dentist. It wasn't helping the group dentist. And we were honest, and he said, yeah, you can figure this out on your own. Here's how you do it. And he gave us the tools. Within a week, we had our web guy in, and we've got that up. And I mean, we've got it up and running. We're just testing it to make sure it actually works. But within 7 days, we had this set up. Now, if I didn't have my partner Wally out there meeting somebody to have this conversation, could I do this all on my own?
Right.
You know, I think that's a big challenge for people right now.
Yes.
Is how many things does the individual do on their own, and how can your network again help you? How can you lean on people around you to help you? Because you're right. I mean, there's some people that are stuck right now that are getting into their almost retirement time, and they've been pushed back probably 5 years in terms of finances, maybe even more. And so now they're having to relook at this, and that's going to be a huge challenge. And so to me, it's reach out to other people that are in industry that you can maybe work with and work together, because I don't think you can do this on your own. I think you need friends and people to help you. And what I've been seeing with a lot of people in industry is that a lot of people have been trying to help people, and they're not even asking for anything in return. They're literally just trying to help people, because what we know is we need people to be successful on the back end, because all of our businesses rely on people going back to work and getting healthy and making money again, so they can spend that money again. Because if nobody has a job in sort of 3 months' time, none of us exist. So we need everybody to be successful at the end of this.
We do. No, that's great advice. And, you know, it is really true, right? That, you know, we can move fast alone, but it's only through moving together that we go far. Right. And I think that's so important. You know, so as we kind of come to a place, you know, where we've got just a little bit of time left, we've got one question here, you know, from Amy. Says, what do your developmental meetings look like with your team? And I think that's a great question. Do you have topics? Do you act as the leader or moderator? Do you have regular meetings? So that's actually very practical right now.
That's a great question. And a lot of people ask us how we do that. So, you know, a couple of different things that we do, and I'll take it right down to the individual clinic level and then up to the, you know, to the full team level. So, you know, we have morning meetings every single day at a clinic level. I mean, not right now during this, but, you know, we start out every day at every clinic. We all get there 15 minutes before work starts, and we have a 10-minute meeting, and then we see our first patient. So that's one of those things. On the kind of larger scale or higher level scale, we close every office 3 times a year for team development.
Okay.
And so twice a year we do it just with each individual team, and then once a year we close all offices on the same day and do a large team meeting. And that's the one that you were invited to kind of, you know, 15, 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. And we bring in speakers. And the interesting thing about all of these team meetings is that none of them revolve around dentistry.
Okay.
They have nothing to do with dentistry. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give our team, you know, education that will make them better, that will make them healthier, that'll make them smarter. You know, I go into, you know, I mean, some people like them, some people don't, but Chip Wilson talks about, you know, help people do what they want to do, because they'll give you 100% while they're with you. Because here's the thing that we know, that most people will not work for you for their entire career. Right. We hope that they do. You know, I got one of our long-term, Stephanie, that's on there that was talking. I mean, she's been with us over 15 years. So that's one of those, like, you know, career type people. But in a lot of situations, you don't get people for their entire career. No. And so how do you get 100% out of your people while they're with you? Well, make them better at what they're trying to do, and they're going to give you 100% while they're with you. And so we train people on, you know, motivation, on finances. We had a financial speaker the last 2 years. We've had health speakers the last 2 years. We've had mental resilience, you know, people that are, you know, helping with that. Because what we want to do is we want to make our team stronger, and things that they can use outside the office and inside the office. So again, a full day retreat with all of our offices once a year, and then 2 just days in clinics where, Yes, I'll moderate a decent amount of this. I'll speak at a decent amount of this, but we bring in speakers like Abe that we brought in. We have another person on our team that does a lot of team development as well for us. And so he'll help us create some of the content for that as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And I love the fact that you're investing in people beyond just the profession, right? Because, obviously as, in a regulated profession, you have to continue to educate yourself in your craft, right? In your profession. And that's a given. But beyond that, I need to develop my character. I need to align with the culture. I need to be a person who does respond and stay inspired and be motivated. And so I like the fact that you're doing that. So one question I think that has come up for me over and over again on this webinar has been the question of mental health. And, I'm also, a partner in a company called Wellness Innovate, where we focus on mental health in the workplace specifically. And so we've been running webinars, and maybe that's a part of why it's on my mind all the time, because, I'm an MBA, I can do business strategy with people, but I'm also a mental health expert and practitioner, and realize that until somebody's mental health is where it needs to be, it's going to be tough to do business strategy. It's going to be tough to get into the nitty gritty of, how are we going to make money and how are we going to transition in this economy? So what are some thoughts about mental health that you could give? Because I know I follow you too, and I know that that's an interest of yours. And I think you probably have lots of value to share with our audience here today.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is one of it's one of the tough ones, right? Because we need healthy people in so many aspects. I mean, we need healthy people because if you don't get to work healthy, and if you're not healthy for your family, then nothing's working, right? I mean, your life is more difficult. It's more challenging to do things. And so, I try to make things simpler for people. I mean, one of the things that we've looked at is, actually doing more work on the mental health side and try to bring some more education to our team on mental health, because I think it's very important.
Okay.
Where I try to reach out is on the simple things of like creating a routine, how to eat a little bit better, how to move a little bit better, how to do those simple things that will make you more resilient. It's not going to solve the problem. I mean, that's for sure, but it's going to make you more resilient to when these things happen. If we're physically healthier, if we're mentally healthier, if we're emotionally healthier, if we're, spiritually healthier, you can get through these tough times easier because we have things to rely on. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, it's, it's breaking down routines for people. It's breaking down eating habits. It's breaking down sleeping habits. It's just making these things as simple as possible, just little tidbits that people can work on, so that they stay as healthy as possible. But again, we need help from leaders like you and people in mental health to get people through this. But we know that one of the biggest things, and in part of my lectures that I do, I bring mental health in and I say, connecting with people is the biggest and best thing that you can do. Because what we see is when people get into a bit of a rut, they technically they turn inwards a little bit. And when they turn inwards a little bit, when you talk to people, and I actually joke about this, I said, when you get home from a day of work and it's, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, you're like, I'm exhausted.
Right.
I've worked hard all day. I'm exhausted. And then all of a sudden you get to Friday,
right,
and people are like, hey, let's go out for a drink. Let's go do something. I mean, I have a boys poker night on Fridays, and I have all this energy. And my wife's looking at me like, well, 10 o'clock last night, you couldn't keep your eyes open, but you come home at 1 o'clock in the morning from your poker night. Like, what's going on, right? And it's one of those interesting things because that's Friday. Like, you've worked your entire week.
Yes.
And you should be more exhausted on Friday.
Right.
But what people forget about that is that's the level of connection. When you're connecting with people, when you interact with people, your level of energy, your excitement changes significantly. So when somebody tells you, and I tell this to people all the time, I said, when somebody tells you, I'm tired,
Yeah.
what they're telling you is they're disconnected.
Yes.
They're not tired. They're just disconnected. And so my thing to anybody is if somebody tells you they're tired, your response should be, let's go grab a bite. Let's go grab coffee. Let's go meet up. Let's do now it's going to be, let's do FaceTime. Let's get on Zoom because we can't go have coffee and we can't interact. But when people are telling you they're tired, all they're telling you is there's a level of disconnection and they're not feeling connected. Because when you feel connected, you have energy. Like looking at this group right now, we have all these people on here. I'm talking to you. I have all the energy in the world. I'll get off this call and all of a sudden, be like, okay, I'm tired. I need a coffee or I need my green tea.
Yeah.
So when you're connecting with people, you have such a different level of energy.
So good, right? And it's interesting because you can also add to that energy. So it's not just a take relationship, it's a give relationship, and giving and taking. And I think, in this era where we are physically distant with good reason, we just have to keep leaning into the social connection. And so I think this is great to hear you share that, Dr. Jan. So we got a question from Jennifer Drever. Since we all have a bit more time to read right now, can you recommend a few business or leadership books other than Simon Sinek?
He's always my go-to. So I know people who know me will know that he's my go-to for some of that. You probably have some great ideas. I mean, I like another book by Daniel Pink called Drive.
Yeah.
It changed our perception on bonuses. We have no bonuses in our entire organization. We removed bonuses. I'm thinking about 8 years ago. I'd have to remember when my sister got married, and we had a reception in India because the groom's family was in India. So we did a reception in Mexico, India, and at the Stampede. I mean, she had the biggest party ever for her wedding, I think.
Love it.
And on my way to India, I read Drive on the plane, and I came back home and I said, we're done with bonuses.
Right.
We'll no longer do bonuses. And because the reason is, if I can pay you 10% more and you work 10% harder, I should fire you.
Right.
Because my expectation is you work at 100%.
Yeah.
So Drive is a book that I like. Malcolm Gladwell, I think, has some great books on, it just hit some of his leadership stuff. I mean, I really like some of his stuff. Good to Great has always been one of my go-to books in terms of, the flywheel and leadership, because I think leadership is really important. And I think, can you get to level 5 leadership? And they talk about this, and where I look back, and I'll look to my father in this, and I know he's been on the call and listening today too, is that, if you create an organization with level 5 leadership, what it means is you can take the head off the top of the organization and it keeps running.
Yeah.
Level 4 leadership is where the CEO of the organization is the reason the organization stays together. You remove the CEO, the organization falls apart. And, one of the things I learned from my father when I joined him, he, a number of years ago, he stopped working and he pulled himself a little bit back. And he still is a huge inspiration and he still helps us. But by the fact that the founder of the organization could step back and the organization could still exist, means created a level 5 leadership, because we've created systems, we've created teamwork, we've created all these pieces inside the organization that it exists without the original person starting it.
Love it. Right. So critical, and so we've got some great ideas here. High Performance Habits by Brennan Burchard. I've read that. It's excellent. And
Brene Brown.
Yeah. Brene Brown, Good to Great, Drive. I've been reading this right now, The Brain that Changes Itself. This is excellent. One of the pioneers of neuroscience and really the idea of neuroplasticity, which I think especially right now is so crazily important for people watching this who might say, well, I don't know how to change. I don't know how to transition to an online model. He doesn't get into specific strategies about that, but what he does is talks about how your thinking can change at a brain science level. And when that happens, it's amazing how empowered you are and much better able to learn. So no, I think that's great. Great question. So I've got another question for you, Dr. Jan. When it comes to, your own self-care, what are some of the practices that you're doing? And I think, again, for business folks watching this is really important, because remember, Dr. Jan's not just a dentist. He's also, leading an organization with 200 individuals in it. And so that self-care matters. And so what are some of the things that you've been doing for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, we joke, I mean, we have a gym. We can't use it right now because unfortunately, but I mean, so some of the stuff that I've talked about already, but doing your best to eat well, cutting sugar out of your system as much as possible. I mean, my staff jokes about it all the time because everybody's baking right now. And so every time I see a picture of baking, I'm like, that's sugar-free, right? And every once in a while, somebody will like, yes, we use stevia, or we used bananas, or we used something else inside of there. But the challenge that we're having being at home, one of the biggest benefits I think of being at home is we're cooking more. And if I could change one thing in anybody's life, it's just stop eating out and you will be healthier. There's no question. Even if you use sugar all the time at home, which most people don't, if you just cook at home, you're going to be healthier. There's no question that by cooking at home, you're healthier. So we have a huge opportunity right now to do that. I'm very fortunate. My wife does all the cooking at home, so I rely on her to do a lot of the home stuff, and I'm blessed. And we're 2 weeks away from having our another little boy, so we're she said keep your phone on you because she's like I might call you, and I'm like I'm on a call, I'm on a chat like this. She's like, well, if I call you, she's like, it means we're having a baby, so you need to get off of that and meet me somewhere because
Awesome.
we're due April 29th with another little boy.
Awesome.
But, eating well, super important. Sleeping well, I think, is almost just as important. I think getting to bed at a decent time, not watching Netflix till 2 a.m. because we have no time to wake up, right? I mean, most of these people, all the people that we're working with, our team, they don't have to wake up at any point in time because they don't have to go to work. They're, all unemployed at this point in time. So creating a routine around sleep, I think, is really important. Working out, I think is really important. And I think, finding some time for yourself, finding that mindfulness time, whether that means meditation for you, whether that means prayer for you, whether that means, a whole bunch of different things. And then learning, spending some time learning. I mean, those are the things that I'm doing. I haven't, and it's so crazy because I have a couple of podcasts and the rest. I really have not gotten into like listening to enough podcasts. I mean, right now, as much as I wish I had a lot of time on my hands, since this has happened, I still don't have any free time on my hands. We've just been working so much trying to keep the organization going and making sure we're taking care of the team and doing the responsible things for the organization. I'm still actually waiting for time where I can just sit down and read a little bit more and do some of that stuff. But I'm still making some time every day to read some stuff. I mean, I go on LinkedIn a lot, read some articles. Harvard Business Review, I actually love the stuff that they put out. So, I'll just read an article every morning from them, when I wake up. That'll get me some motivation to get the day going.
It's great. It's great. I mean, and I think it's just the same way. You've got to fuel your body. You got to fuel your mind and your spirit, right? It's irrational. I always tell people to expect a life of joy and peace and, some amount of emotional regulation if you're not feeding yourself in a healthy way. Like it's just completely irrational, and so I've been encouraging people quite a bit as well to monitor their media intake, because I promise you that 8 hours of CNN is not good for your mental health a day. Now don't bury your head in the sand. I mean, without a doubt, hop on and get engaged so that you know what's going on. But beyond that, get off because it's not doing you any good. So Dr. Jen, this has been amazing. We are so grateful. And do you have any final thoughts for us here today?
I think one of the things that, I didn't mention earlier, and I probably want to just a little bit, is that you have to start with trust. And you have to build trust amongst the organization. It is the foundation of our organization, and we always talk about that. When something goes wrong in the organization, somebody will blame somebody for leaving something out or not sterilizing something or not doing this. And what we've understood is that if you lose trust, you start picking at the little things in the person. But if you have that trust, then you're not going to have a problem. And we talk about, would you rather trust somebody 100% of the time and have them work at 80% capacity, or trust them 80% of the time and have them work at 100% capacity? And what everybody says is, I'd rather trust you 100% of the time. I don't want you to stab me in the back 1 out of 5 times. That's not going to work well for me. But I'll cover for you on the work side if I know you're putting all your effort in. So if I know that you are doing everything that you possibly can and I can trust you all the time, I'll cover for you. But if I can only trust you sometimes and you're working all the time, that's not what I want on my team. And so building trust, and we've already gone through some of the concepts of how to do that. I think it's just going back and talking about that as a concept, because that's talking to people, that's calling people, that's making videos, that's doing Zoom, that's, finding out about their family, right? I mean, I think it's so important, and I think we forget about this, is do you really know about your team? And do you know about the challenges that your teams are having? Do you know about the things that they're going through that are difficult at home? Are you reaching out and finding out, how is the kid that's sick? How is, the parent that's not doing well, or somebody that passed away, and the rest? Like, those things go such a long way. And so if we can build trust, your team won't leave you. I mean, the number of messages I've gotten from my team and we've laid them all off. I mean, like literally everybody we have on our team doesn't work anymore. And they're sending me messages saying, thank you for everything that's going on. Thank you for the help. And I'm like, I feel bad because we can't, there's only so much that we can possibly do at this point in time, but they're reaching out saying thank you because they know that we're doing the best that we possibly can at this time. And it's uncertain. Nobody knows the answer. And I think the honesty of saying, I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to get through it together. And when a leader can say, I don't know the answer, I think that's humbling. I think the biggest problem they have in the US is not being able to say, I don't know the answer, but I'm here for you and we'll get through it.
Yeah.
If you build some humility into what you're doing, people will trust you more.
Yeah, and I think it's admitting what everybody knows is quite obvious anyways, right? I mean, I've been in leadership roles for 25 years and at no point did anyone following me think that I knew everything. I can promise you that. But the funny thing is when I don't admit that I don't know everything, then they think, he's even dumber. You know what I mean, right? So at least if you admit it and you say, hey guys, like I'm doing the best I can. I need your help. I'm open to your feedback. I don't have a crystal ball here, but I'm trying. And I think that you message that to people. Not only do you build trust, but then you get the best part of their brain going. And they start creating and innovating and giving some feedback and actually becoming part of that solution so that our oars are kind of moving in the right direction together, right?
That's great.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Dr. Jan. And, folks, just pop your comments in because, we just want to give you a chance to say thanks to Dr. Jan. And so many people are saying that they're quite energized. And I'm just going to share one or two quick thoughts as we bring this to a conclusion. I think if anything, what Dr. Jan has shared has confirmed the idea that in the middle of adversity, opportunity absolutely does abound. And lots of opportunity, right? Opportunity for growth, opportunity for development, opportunity for spiritual growth, opportunity to reconnect, opportunity for relationships, opportunity for reassessment and reevaluation. And, we've been offering these webinars and we'll be right back here next week. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But this idea that in the middle of adversity, opportunity abounds. And I would encourage you, number one, to take advantage of the opportunity for safety, right? To be safe. And not only, physical distancing, but actually getting safe mentally, emotionally, through maybe meditation or mindfulness or whatever practices you need to support you getting safe, getting around people, even if it's virtually, who support your growth and development. I think also the opportunity for support. Please reach out, right? Don't be socially isolated, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed about saying, hey, I need some help. I need some support. I can promise you that if there's anyone on this call today who's like, I don't have any food, or I don't know, what I need to be doing with my business, you reach out to one of us, Dr. Jan or myself, and we will help you. We can promise you that, right? We don't want anyone on this call or anywhere, frankly, to be in a hard place. And once you get safe and get supported, then it is time to start thinking about strategy. And why is strategy important? Well, because strategy leads to success. And the right strategy leads to success. And so just really encourage you folks to be thinking about, what are your next steps? What does that look like for you? And we've got this great coaching program that so many people, surprising me, even in the last month, have just dove into this Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise coaching program. And if you want to book a support call with myself, a member of my team, just reach out. No cost, obviously. We just want to serve you. We want to support you. We want to make sure that you're getting through this as best you can. And then next week, we have an incredible lineup of two speakers who are going to be with us next week, and you can see them on your screen. So we've got Reena Chong. Reena is an incredible entrepreneur. She's a real pioneer in her own right. Calgarian, actually, born and raised Calgarian, now currently residing in the U.S. And unfortunately, we couldn't get her dog on the Zoom call next week, but she'll be on the call along with Rosalind Fung. Rosalind is a psychologist. She's also a coach. And so next week, you're going to hear both from the mental health side and also from the entrepreneurial side. And we just encourage you to please join us. And one last sort of tribute, those of you who are frontline workers, and that's obviously the Tim Hortons drive-through folks all the way to those in healthcare. We want you to know we see you, we really do, and we thank you. We honor you for what you're doing. And please do join us next week. Here's some of the positive comments for you, Dr. Jan. Great webinar. Thanks so much for your talk. Thank you. Great meeting. Great learning experience. And a lot of these are folks who don't know you, Dr. Jan. So it's that's good, right? Great insights. I love the values perspective and trust as foundations. Glenn says, thanks for the Zoom. Dan says, thanks for your time. It was enlightening. Natasha, great talk. Gabrielle, wonderful webinar. Navjeet, thank you, Dr. Jan, very inspirational leader. Amrit, great conversation. Reena, next week. Thank you so much, Dr. Jan and Abe. And we got Rosalind, she's a mom, and so is Reena. Dawn says that you're a very kind man, Dr. Jan. That's great to hear. That's probably one of the best compliments you've gotten all day, right? And Monfik, she's a client of mine. I don't do dental work, by the way, in the coaching space. She said in Halifax, and she says, you're amazing and extremely wise, Dr. Jan. Rhonda says, fabulous. Thank you so much. And Shannon on Facebook, really appreciate the opportunity. So thanks, Dr. Jan.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, you did a lot of good today.
Awesome.
Okay, folks, listen, thank you. Stay in touch, and let's find someone today who needs some support, do some good, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you.
Take it easy. We'll see you guys.